Mad Max Fury Road is a film that I've actually reviewed before. Before I started doing video reviews, I used to do written stuff, and so in May 2015, when this film first came out, I actually did review it. You can find the review in the description below if you want to check that out and you want to see how things have evolved since then, because my god, things have evolved since then. But it was always a video I wanted to do, and I always wanted to talk about it in this format because over the years, since I first started this, I've got a lot better at doing this video stuff. I've liked seeing myself on the camera a lot more. There's nothing narcissistic about that. It's just I want to talk about stuff in a more interactive medium. And since it has now been 5 years since this film came out, it felt like the perfect time to talk about it and just give my thoughts on it. Even though it's pretty much unchanged from May 2015. When it first came out, I said this is going to be the best action movie of the decade. Now that the decade is over, it is the best action movie of the decade. And so far, not a single other action movie has come close to this. I would say Mission Impossible Fallout is probably the second best. That was the other one that came within like a hair of Fury Road. But even then, Fury Road is still a bit better than that because it's such an accomplishment. Now, there have been other Mad Max movies before, of course. They're all from George Miller, but they had Mel Gibson in it. And even though this one is sort of a soft reboot, it's also kind of a sequel. It acknowledges certain things that happened in the previous films. There's certain little Easter eggs here and there. But in reality, this is pretty much a standalone Mad Max movie, this one having Tom Hardy in it. And you can watch this film without having seen Road Warrior, the first one, or Beyond Thunderdome. But if you have time, watch those three films. Beyond Thunderdome's probably the weakest one, but it's still got its really fun moments. It's also the most quotable one in some ways. But Fury Road was one of those films that actually proved that it's about visual storytelling. Cinema is a medium that doesn't always need an extensive script and a ton of dialogue to express itself. In a time where we talk about films that have constant exposition, Fury Road really just has one scene like that. But it's also halfway into the film, so you kind of don't mind it. You wanted that kind of a scene, just to sort of understand where we're going with this. And the plot is very simple. It's from going from point A to point B, and then back to point A again. Like, that's the third act of the film. They turn around. And that might seem ludicrous for a lot of people, but Miller made it work because it's telling a character story in the process, and it's constantly shifting between who to focus on and how to focus on them. Tom Hardy is Max, and yes, he is the titular character in the film, but really this is the story of Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, who is fantastic in this movie. And so you're really following her story and what she's trying to accomplish by saving the wives from this tyrant named Immortan Joe, who's taken over the water supply, rules people who are desperate, and is just a really sick human being in general. And so the struggle that these wives are facing, who, by the way, most of them get their own character arcs, their own individual purposes to the story. At the same time, you're following Furiosa as she's had a life of hardship, and she's gone a more personal redemptive journey on her own, as she says in the film as well. And Max is just caught in the middle of things. He's not really supposed to be here. He doesn't want anything to do with this, but since he's involved here, he may as well tag along because the safest bet is to get away from whatever Joe's cooking up, because he was prisoner to those guys, to his cult, those who worship the engines and the cars and him, and sort of use people who have a ton of blood in them as blood bags, as Max was being used. And so he wants to get away from that stuff. All of these things you know, though, because you've seen this movie. In the last 5 years, ever since it became such a phenomenon, people have watched this film and talked about it to death. And it's again one of those reviews where I don't really know what more I can add beyond go see the film. It's freaking amazing. It's online. It's all over the place. So yeah, you should go ahead and do that. But at the same time, there is so much to admire about this film. Things that have held up so far in the last 5 years, like just the way it looks, the cinematography, the visual effects, the practicality of the film is mind-boggling. The fact that they managed to accomplish all of these stunts and all of this work and so seamlessly edited into the film. By the way, the editing in this film is outstanding. There are a few moments in particular where they got the movement so right that the cut from one shot to another, it's so seamless. Like in the background, you may have cut away from a certain action sequence, and that action sequence is properly still in camera happening, and it gives you a perspective of the entire scene around you and sort of understand the urgency of it all. I thought that was really great. This is of course demonstrated the best in the final act of the film when they're on their way back, and you have basically 3 to 4 different fights happening at once, and they accomplished all of those things and kept you in the middle of all those fights without ever losing focus of it. That's just a testament to wonderful direction but from Miller's end, and just the absolutely brilliant stunt doubles, the people involved, the visual effects people, everybody. Like, this is one of those films that it's lightning in a bottle. This is what lightning in a bottle really, really means. I gotta talk about the score though, because I'm astonished that this didn't get any awards consideration. It is such an awesome score, and I understand probably because it's really loud and bombastic that it didn't get any kind of consideration at all. But it works so well for this film. Like, every creative choice made in this movie, it just worked perfectly. At the time I saw this film in 2015, I do know that one of the very, very, very minute issues I had is that there were a couple of minutes in the middle where the pacing sort of faltered. And I thought, well, I didn't really like that part, but I liked the rest of the film. Also, at the time I was watching this film, the reason I was going fishing for flaws, and this is a sin on my part, is because I'd just seen Avengers Age of Ultron, and at the time I loved Age of Ultron. And so I didn't want like something coming in the middle of it. I was a kid. Like, I was a kid, guys. I was young. I was stupid. But in recent years, this is obviously the much better film. Age of Ultron didn't even crack my top 10 of 2015, by the way. This did. So naturally, now going into it, I can sort of like redeem myself, as the movie tries to redeem its characters in some ways, by basically saying, yeah, this is a perfect film. I actually have no issues with it now. This is a terrific movie. It's a masterpiece. I rarely use that word here, but it's really a perfect film. And it remains to this day. But again, these are things you know. I'm not giving you any new information by telling you these things. Nor will I be giving you new information when you get to the end of this review and you get the final grade. And so, well, there's not much I can say, but you know, I am filming this review on a pretty lovely day, so just wanted a reason to paraphrase that line, I suppose. I'm gonna give Mad Max Fury Road a very well-deserved 10 out of 10. Not much of a review, more of a reflection, because, well, like I said, it's all been said. But nonetheless, I'm glad I finally got to do a video about it, because now I can cleanse my soul. I'm glad it's done. I feel better about myself now. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I'll see you guys at the movies.